Imagine this: you're soaring thousands of feet above the ground, tucked comfortably into your seat, halfway to your destination, and suddenly, the world outside the window doesn't matter anymore. Because inside, something is going catastrophically wrong. That nightmare scenario? It became terrifyingly real for the passengers and crew of Air India Express flight AXB 613. This isn't just a story about a mechanical failure, it's a pulse-pounding narrative of fear, incredible skill, and a fight against the clock in the sky. Our story begins on October 11, 2024. Air India Express flight AXB 613, a standard Boeing 737-800, is preparing for departure from Tiruchirappalli, or Trichy, in India. Its destination? Sharjah, a bustling city in the United Arab Emirates. On board are 141 souls, passengers perhaps heading for business, holidays, or returning home, alongside a dedicated crew. The mood is typical for any flight: anticipation, maybe a little pre-travel jitters, but mostly, a sense of routine predictability. The engines spool up, the aircraft taxis to the runway, everything is proceeding exactly as planned. The Boeing 737-800 is a workhorse of the skies, designed for safety and reliability. Pilots are rigorously trained, maintenance crews meticulously check every system. When you buckle up, you trust in this intricate chain of expertise and technology. And for a few moments after takeoff, that trust seemed perfectly justified. But just as the wheels left the tarmac, and the aircraft climbed into the blue, the routine shattered. Inside the cockpit, a piercing sound cut through the engine noise. An alarm. Specifically, the master caution alarm. For pilots, this isn't just a notification, it's an immediate demand for attention. Something critical, something potentially dangerous, is wrong. Their training kicks in instantly. Eyes scan the instrument panel, hands move efficiently, following checklist procedures. What was the source of the alarm? The instruments pointed to one of the aircraft's most vital systems, the hydraulics. Think of the hydraulic system as the airplane's muscle power. It uses pressurized fluid to move massive components that pilots couldn't possibly control manually under flight loads. We're talking about the control surfaces on the wings and tail, the ailerons, elevators, rudder, the things that steer the plane. It powers the flaps and slats, crucial for takeoff and landing speeds. And critically, it's vital for extending and locking the landing gear, and it assists with braking. A loss of hydraulic pressure in a primary system isn't just a malfunction, it's a severe threat to the aircraft's controllability and, more importantly, its ability to land safely. The pilots of AXB 613 saw a rapid, significant drop in hydraulic fluid levels. This was a major system failure. At this point, the plane is airborne, climbing towards its cruising altitude. They're miles from Trichy, hours away from Sharjah. The immediate question in the cockpit, guided by training and procedure, is, can we continue the flight? The answer, based on aviation safety protocols, was a resounding no. Flying for several more hours with a known, critical hydraulic failure was simply too risky. Why? Several reasons. First, controllability. While aircraft have backup systems, a major hydraulic loss compromises primary controls. The longer they fly, the higher the chance the problem could worsen, potentially affecting more systems or making the aircraft harder to fly, especially during approach and landing. Second, the landing gear. One of the most critical uses of hydraulics is extending and locking the landing gear. Without reliable hydraulic pressure, there's no guarantee the wheels would come down properly at Sharjah. Attempting to land an airliner at high speed without locked landing gear is incredibly dangerous. It risks collapsing gear, runway excursion, fire, catastrophe. Aviation safety is built on mitigating known risks. Continuing to Sharjah meant flying for hours, increasing the risk of the problem worsening, and facing a high-stakes landing without guaranteed gear. It was a risk the pilots, prioritizing the lives of everyone on board, simply couldn't take. The decision was made, they had to return to Trichy. Turning back offered significant advantages. They were close, emergency services at Trichy were familiar with the airport and aircraft type, and it minimized the time spent flying with the critical failure. But even returning presented a major challenge: a silent, invisible enemy: weight. The Boeing 737 had taken off with a full load of fuel, enough for the entire journey to Sharjah and beyond. This meant it was significantly heavier than the maximum certified landing weight for Trichy Airport. Landing an overweight aircraft puts immense stress on the landing gear, the airframe, and the brakes. With a compromised hydraulic system, this stress was compounded. Landing overweight increased the risk of landing gear failure, structural damage, or being unable to stop on the runway, even if the gear came down. They needed to lose weight. The solution was simple in concept, agonizing in execution: burn fuel. The pilots had to keep the aircraft airborne, circling near Trichy, for long enough to consume thousands of pounds of fuel, bringing the aircraft's weight down to a safe level for landing. For over 2 harrowing hours, Flight AXB 613 circled. Every pass, every minute, fuel was consumed. In the cockpit, the pilots were meticulously calculating, managing the aircraft, communicating with air traffic control, all while dealing with the anxiety of the hydraulic failure and the pressure of the situation. Down below, at Trichy Airport, the tension was palpable. News of the emergency spread. Emergency services, fire trucks, ambulances, were mobilized and lined up along the runway, a grimly reassuring sight. Officials, including the Civil Aviation Minister, were alerted and monitoring the situation. Everyone understood the stakes. The hours ticked by. With each circuit, the aircraft became lighter, moving closer to that critical safe landing weight. It was a testament to the crew's discipline and training, maintaining focus and control during a prolonged, high-stress situation. Finally, after what must have felt like an eternity, the aircraft reached a safe landing weight. The time came to prepare for the approach and landing back at Trichy. The hydraulic failure was still active, meaning deploying the landing gear via the primary system was unlikely. Modern airliners have backup systems, including the ability to deploy landing gear manually, a procedure reserved for emergencies like this. It's a complex, physically demanding process, often involving cranking or pulling levers to mechanically release the locks and let gravity and airflow push the gear down. It's a last resort, requiring precise execution. As AXB 613 lined up with the runway, the pilots initiated the manual gear deployment. This was the moment of truth for the landing gear. Would the backup system work? Would the locks release? Would the wheels drop and lock into position? The relief must have been immense. On the first attempt, the manual deployment worked. The landing gear extended, and importantly, locked into position. The aircraft was ready to land. Back on the ground, the waiting emergency crews and airport staff held their breath. As the Boeing 737 touched down on the Trichy runway, a collective sigh of relief swept across the airport. The landing was safe. Passengers, shaken but physically unharmed, disembarked. Their travel plans were disrupted. Their destination wasn't Sharjah that day, but their lives were safe, thanks to the skill and decisive actions of the flight crew. The incident with Air India Express AXB 613 serves as a powerful reminder of several things. First, the critical importance of aircraft maintenance. The investigation into the hydraulic failure would later determine its exact cause. Second, the value of rigorous pilot training, the crew's ability to handle a major system failure, make quick decisions, perform complex procedures like manual gear extension, and manage the flight during the holding pattern was paramount. In the face of imminent catastrophe, they didn't panic. They relied on their training, their checklists, and their courage. They turned a potentially deadly emergency into a safe, albeit stressful, return to base. Imagine you're thousands of feet in the sky when suddenly, the aircraft faces a hydraulic failure, forcing an emergency landing. What would you do in such a life-altering moment? On October 11, 2024, this terrifying scenario became a reality. If you found this deep dive into a real-life aviation emergency compelling, please hit that like button. Subscribe to our channel for more gripping stories that unravel the mysteries and marvels of the world around us. Thanks for watching, and until next time, fly safe.